Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a minute since you saw me on this channel, but I'm really excited to be back. In fact, Happy New Year everyone. I know I've not been present here for the last couple of months, and that's because life has been really busy, but I'm getting back into it and I'm excited to make more videos on this channel. Now, last year, by the grace of God, I bought my first property in the Netherlands. And in that time, I've had a couple of people ask me questions around, hey Gift, how did you go about the process? Like, what are the steps that I need to follow to buy a property in the Netherlands? It's been almost 7 months since I did this, and a lot of the steps that I took, I'm almost forgetting it. So I figured it would be best if I document it and make a video so that I can use it for myself in the future, as well as for people to also reference. So in this video, I'm going to go through the steps from start to finish in purchasing a property in the Netherlands. As a first-time buyer, of course, it was very difficult for me to do everything myself. A lot of the information that was coming to me were too much to handle, that I needed time to actually collect them and make actual use of them. So I'll give you a brief story. I actually decided that I was going to get a house in the Netherlands around 2022. But at the time, a lot was happening for me, and honestly, when I tried to look into the market, it wasn't the best time. So I figured I would pause on that and return back to it when I'm a bit more, settled and a bit ready, and also when the market is better, right? So fast forward to 2023, I discovered that the interest rate had gone down a bit, and it was a good time based on the resources that I found on the internet to get back into the market. And yeah, so I started looking. So the first step in the entire process is to do your research, right? And I'm not saying this lightly. Make sure you do detailed research into different things, right? I think the first thing to start with is, do you want to do the entire process yourself? Like, do you want to search for the house yourself? Or do you want to get a house agent or a makler? Now, you need to make the decision yourself. So if you would like to use the services of a makler, which is a house agent, then that's great. You can find one that suits your need, or you can try to do the finding, the research and everything yourself. Most of the information you need actually are online, but it's better you use someone that has more experience in the area, which is why I went with the house agent. So I used the house agent, and they really helped me, understand a lot of the things that I was struggling with before. So the first thing you need to do is ensure that you make this decision. Do you want to find it yourself, or do you want to use a makler? Now, the second thing I would advise you to do is to check how much you can borrow for your house. So if you decide that you want to, get a loan or a mortgage from the bank, you can use a mortgage calculator to calculate how much money you can borrow from the bank. This will inform you on the kind of house that you're looking for, the kind of property that you want to get, and the price that you can get. So for example, if based on your income, you can borrow as much as 400,000 euros, then you know that you can look for houses within the range of 300,000 to 400,000 euros. But if you don't have this information, you will just be searching for a house, and maybe you find one that you really like, but you don't necessarily have enough money or can borrow enough money from the bank to get the house. So I would say also the second step you should ensure you do is to check using a mortgage calculator. I'll leave some links in the description for some you can use. ABN AMRO has a very good one that you can use to calculate how much you can borrow from the bank. Now that you have these two information, the last thing I would advise you to do is to also find a good mortgage advisor. So there are so many of them online, so try to do research into finding the best one for your use case. And once you have all of this settled, now the next thing is to start finding the house. So in my case, I wanted to leave Amsterdam, right? I wasn't even looking at houses in Amsterdam. I mean, I tried to search, I tried to look for houses in Amsterdam, but they were very expensive. So I decided to look at other places that are not too far away from Amsterdam, like Utrecht, Almere, where else did I look? Haarlem. I looked at a couple of other cities. I looked at The Hague, Rotterdam. In fact, I looked at everywhere, like anywhere that has like houses that I liked, I'll just explore. But I later drew down my search just so that I'm not overwhelmed to Utrecht and Almere. So those are the two places that I started looking into, right? And Personally, I visited these places and I really liked them. It just made sense for me to, focus on that area. And then I started looking at places on Fonda. Now, remember I mentioned that I was working with a house agent, so they really helped with a lot of things. They helped me explain the process from, finding a house to, putting down a bid. They helped me also explain the different factors that comes into bidding, like the different things that you need to consider if you have the money at hand, if you're going to be borrowing from the bank. They also helped connect me to the mortgage advisor that I ended up using. So it was really helpful for me to have someone that was very experienced in the market that could give me insight into the type of house that I was looking for. Anyway, after I'd had all these steps figured out, I started looking at houses and started going for viewings, right? And that would lead me to the second step. Now, the second step in the process is making your purchase. In the previous step, I mentioned that you can start looking at Fonda for houses that you like so that you can apply to view them. Now, the process of doing the viewing is very similar to how you would do viewing if you were renting an apartment, right? So you go on Fonda, find a house that you like, contact them, or right there in Fonda, you can also put in a message and put your email address and they'll get back to you and you can schedule a viewing. Now, when you schedule a viewing and you go for the viewing, after the viewing, there is something called the bidding process. This is essentially when a lot of people find the house, they go to the viewing and they're interested in the house. But the owner of the house doesn't just give it to one person. So there is a process involved called the bidding process where different people have to put in their own desired purchase price. Now, the purchase price is on Fonda, but you can either add more, like by bidding higher, or bidding exactly what is the purchase price on Fonda, or even going lower. Whatever, I continued looking, and then when it was time to bid for the current one I was in, there were a lot of components that came into play. For example, we had to, put down when exactly we would like to move in. Like, we needed to know that the bank, that's the mortgage advisor we're working with, will be able to get us a loan by a specific date. If I wanted to do a housing inspection, I had to put it down. Also, the price of the house mattered. Like, the asking price for the house was stated on Fonda, and then I was like, oh, this asking price is a bit lower than what I was expecting to pay. Can we add an extra 10K to it just so that I can get it? Because I really liked the place. But my agent told me not to do that because he didn't think that the house was valued at that price. Now, this is also one of the reasons why I said it's important to get an agent, because if I had been doing this by myself, honestly, I would have dropped an extra 10,000 euros when I did not need to do that, right? So this was just my own experience. I don't know what other people's experience is like, but the bidding process is kind of like the hardest part in the purchase, process, where you need to be very careful so you don't end up paying more than expected for the property. Anyway, after the bidding process was done, the owner of the house got back to us and told me that they accepted my bid. And mind you, I did not add any extra money to what they asked for. I just gave them back the purchase price of the house, right? And they accepted my bid, and that was all because of the housing agent that I used. They really helped me in that process. But anyway, immediately after your bid is accepted, now you move on to the next step, which is talking to your mortgage advisor. Now, your mortgage advisor is going to help you get the loan from the bank. And this is why it's important to work with a mortgage advisor, because they would look at the current house that you have as like the purchase price and see how much you can get from the bank. In most cases, you can get 100% of the purchase price from the bank. Now, if you go and look for a house that is way more than you can borrow, then that's not possible, because then you have to get extra cash to support what you are paying for. But in my case, I could borrow 100% from the bank, which was great for me. Honestly, it meant that I was not putting down any down payments for the house. I was just going to get it, and every other cost I would cover myself. So it was just perfect. So anyway, it took like 2 weeks between when my bid was accepted to when my bank accepted my mortgage, right? Decided to process my mortgage, and I finally got, the final purchase agreement, and everything was signed within 2 weeks. In fact, the entire process took a month for me to get from finding the house to finalizing the purchase. Now, after getting the mortgage from the bank and everything was settled, we needed to fix a date for the notary. Now, the notary part is similarly, is kind of the last part of the process where you are basically exchanging, signing documents and exchanging the key. So the owner gives you the key and then you sign, they sign, and then everything is final. Basically the transfer day, if you will. We set up a date for the transfer, and this was a month after I had signed the purchase agreement. So exactly a month later, I moved into the house. All right, so those are the process that I took from finding a house, getting a mortgage advisor, putting in my bid, getting the mortgage from the bank, and going to the notary. Now, on the day that I went to the notary, I had to pay some additional costs. I'll try to detail all the costs that I can remember, but in case I don't, I can maybe, if you ask me, I can maybe put it down in the comments. But off the top of my head, I remember I had to pay for the house agents. Remember, it's not free. I had to pay them for their services. I had to pay for the mortgage advisor, their services as well. It's not free. I had to pay the notary. I had to pay for a translator. And this is why it's important to learn the language, because even though I understand a bit of Dutch, they wanted me to have a translator, and I had to pay the translator for the few minutes that they translated the terms while we were doing the signing of the deed. Anyway, I had to pay that. I find that I had to do a house inspection. I had to do a house inspection just so I'm sure that everything in the place that I'm getting is pretty standard and there was no issues. So I had to pay for that as well. There are a few other costs that comes into play that I cannot remember right now, but it depends on your situation. If you're getting a house or if you're getting an apartment, it really depends. In my case, I got an apartment, and I feel like there were additional costs like the VVA or it's called the housing association cost, I feel like. But yeah, I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head, but I cannot remember everything. But at the same time, it really depends on your situation. So my situation is different from yours, right? But there were some additional costs that comes out of the entire purchasing process that I had to cover out of pocket. So all of this was in total somewhere around 8,000 euros. So at everything that I ended up paying to get the property was around 8,000 euros. And honestly, that blew my mind, because if I had not done my research and I had not known, I would have thought that I would need to drop at least a huge chunk of money to be able to get a property. Another thing that applied to me, but also you need to check if it applies to you, is something called the transfer tax. I didn't have to pay transfer tax because, one, I'm younger than 30 years old. So I think if you're buying your first property in the Netherlands and you're younger than 30 years old, you don't need to pay transfer tax. Transfer tax is 2% of your purchase price. Now imagine paying a transfer tax out of pocket, because you can't borrow that from the bank, I feel like. So that would incur a lot more cost for you than it did for me, right? So the benefit of purchasing a property early is that you don't get to pay transfer tax, and it just applies to the first property that you get. So if you get another property, let's say in a few years I decide I want to get another property, then I have to pay the transfer tax, which is very sad. But anyways, that's also something that I learned in the process of getting the house. So yeah, the final process was going to the notary, signing the documents. I then got the keys to the apartment. And yeah, that was pretty much it. All right, so that's exactly the steps that it takes to get your first property in the Netherlands. In case you still have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer to the best of my knowledge. But also please refer to the links that I've added to the description so that you learn a bit more before asking me questions that I have already covered. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope the video actually helps you if you're looking to get a property in the Netherlands. I feel very opportune to have this knowledge and share it with you, and I hope it really helps you with your process. Please don't forget to like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to see more of this type of videos where I share my experience as an expat living in the Netherlands, Please leave your comments and let me know the kind of videos you'd like to see. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.